The Gentleman Killer, Part 1. A detective's fatal obsession begins. In the bustling heart of the city, where skyscrapers cast long shadows over hidden alleyways, a dark legend began to take form. He was a figure whispered about in hushed tones over dimly lit bar counters, his story a mix of fascination and fear. No one knew his real name, only the moniker that had attached itself to him, the Gentleman Killer. He was no ordinary criminal, far from it. He was a handsome stranger who left death in his wake, but always with a touch of elegance. Newspapers splashed his latest exploits across front pages, the police hunted him with an ever-growing sense of urgency, and the public watched with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Yet for one detective, he was more than just a mystery to be solved. Detective Clara Stone found herself ensnared in his web, drawn to his meticulously crafted crime scenes as if he had woven each one specifically for her. For over a year, Clara had tracked the Gentleman Killer, following a trail of clues he left as if inviting her into a macabre game. These weren't mere murders, they were spectacles, each crime scene crafted with an artistic precision that went beyond criminal intent. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that these displays were meant for her, messages left in blood and beauty that spoke to her on a level few others could understand. With each crime scene, the gentleman seemed to delve deeper into her mind, leaving her a step behind, but always within reach, tantalizingly close. Detective Clara Stone had earned her reputation as a relentless investigator, a woman known for her sharp mind and cold, analytical approach to cases. Her colleagues admired her determination and her impressive record. She had solved some of the city's most complex cases. But the gentleman had become more than a case to her. He was an obsession. Each time she came close, he would disappear, slipping into the shadows and leaving behind only a red rose and a cryptic note in an elegant, flowing script. It was as though he was toying with her, aware of her every move, watching her reactions with a twisted sense of pleasure. A haunting past. The legend of the Gentleman Killer grew with each passing day, but few knew his real name, Sebastian Cain. His past was as elusive as he was in the present, a history known only in fragments. Born an orphan, Sebastian had learned early on how to manipulate those around him. Even as a child, he displayed an unnerving calmness and a quick intelligence that unsettled those around him. Teachers, foster parents, and peers all recognized his sharp mind, but there was something else beneath the surface, an insatiable thirst for control, a superiority complex hidden behind a polite smile. As he grew, Sebastian learned to conceal his darkness behind layers of charm. He became a con artist, his looks and wit making him exceptionally good at exploiting people's weaknesses. But petty scams no longer satisfied him. He craved something more profound, a legacy that would live on. This desire pushed him to elevate his cons to a new level, transforming his crimes into works of art that captivated not only his victims, but those who pursued him. The art of seduction and deception. One of his earliest known cons involved the heiress of a powerful family. Clara later uncovered that Sebastian had infiltrated her life under a false identity, presenting himself as a refined scholar of art and literature. His charm was irresistible, and he quickly became the woman's confidant, charming his way into her inner circle. He manipulated her emotions, carefully crafting his persona to be everything she desired. And when he finally revealed his true intentions, she was devastated, left penniless and ruined. Yet, there was a strange sense of grace to his cruelty, as if he took no pleasure in her suffering. It was simply a means to an end, a necessary step in the creation of his masterpiece. As his crimes escalated, Sebastian's fascination with art and literature became more evident. His crime scenes were meticulous recreations of classic works, each one crafted to capture a particular emotion or idea. Each scene was both a tribute to his twisted sense of beauty and a taunt to those who would dare to pursue him, especially Detective Stone. The first scene, a message in blood. Clara would never forget the first time she encountered the gentleman's work. It was late at night when she received the call. A wealthy art collector had been found dead in his study. She arrived to find a scene that felt both horrifying and mesmerizing. The victim sat slumped in an armchair, his body arranged as if in deep thought, his hands resting on a rare edition of Plato's Dialogues. Around him, artifacts and rare books were arranged with meticulous care, each one in perfect alignment, giving the room an unsettling sense of order. As she examined the scene, Clara's sharp eye caught something that felt disturbingly familiar. It was a near-perfect recreation of the death of Socrates, one of her favorite paintings. She realized in that moment that she wasn't dealing with an ordinary killer. This was someone who saw himself as an artist, someone who took pleasure in the game. And she knew, instinctively, that this was a game meant for her. From that night forward, Clara found herself ensnared in the gentleman's web. Each new crime scene was a puzzle, a carefully constructed riddle that spoke to her on a personal level. He left clues, obscure references to literature, symbols, and notes that only someone with her background could decipher. It was as if he were writing her a twisted love letter, each scene a carefully crafted message that spoke to her on a level few others could understand. Despite warnings from her friends and colleagues, Clara couldn't tear herself away. She pored over each clue, dissecting every line and every symbol, trying to get inside his mind. She knew it was dangerous, but she couldn't resist. She was drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain, captivated by the dark brilliance of his work. An unexpected gift. One evening, as she returned to her office after a long day, Clara found a package waiting for her. It was wrapped in black silk, tied with a crimson ribbon. Inside, she discovered a single red rose, its petals soft and fragrant, and a note that read, "Beauty is terror, detective, until we meet." She recognized the quote immediately. It was from The Secret History, a novel that held special meaning to her. Her heart raced. He knew her tastes, her mind. This wasn't just a game, it was an invitation, a dance that only she could follow. A masquerade of shadows. Months passed, and Clara found herself locked in a silent conversation with the gentleman. The press had dubbed him the Gentleman Killer, and he seemed to relish the title. He was always one step ahead, watching her, anticipating her moves, evading her traps with a grace that both frustrated and fascinated her. She knew he was out there somewhere, watching her every move. Then, one evening, she received an invitation to a masquerade ball hosted by one of the city's elite families. The invitation was unsigned, bearing only the initials SK. She knew who it was from. Despite her better judgment, she couldn't resist. She had to see him, to confront him. The ballroom was filled with glittering chandeliers and masked figures dancing to haunting melodies. Clara entered in a sleek black gown and a silver mask, her eyes scanning the crowd. And then she saw him, a tall, dark figure in a midnight blue suit, his mask covering half his face, but not the piercing intensity of his gaze. He approached her, extending a hand. "Detective," he said, his voice smooth and hypnotic. "Would you do me the honor of a dance?" Without a word, she took his hand, feeling a surge of adrenaline as he pulled her close. They moved in silence, the crowd around them fading into shadows. She felt his gaze on her, intense and unyielding. "You've been watching me," he whispered, his lips close to her ear. "Funny," she replied, trying to keep her composure. "I thought it was the other way around." He smiled, a charming yet predatory smile. "We're the same, you and I. I see you, Clara. I see the way you look at my work, the way you try to understand it. Don't you feel it too? This connection?" She shivered, torn between the urge to pull away and an inexplicable attraction. Before she could respond, he released her, leaving her standing alone on the dance floor, the lingering scent of his cologne fading into the night. The descent. After the masquerade, Clara found herself more deeply entangled in the gentleman's world than ever before. Her dreams were haunted by his face, his voice, the intensity of his gaze. She spent sleepless nights poring over case files, revisiting each crime scene, convinced that she had missed something crucial. It became a ritual: the late-night coffee, the dim light of her desk lamp, and the growing stack of notes filled with theories and connections only she could see. But with each revelation, Clara's obsession grew, bleeding into her daily life. Friends and colleagues noticed the change, her once sharp professionalism softening under the weight of something darker. Even her supervisor, Chief Daniels, approached her one night after she spent hours in the precinct, hunched over her files. "Clara," he said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder, "you need to step back. This case, it's consuming you." She looked up at him, exhaustion lining her face. "I'm close, Chief. He's leaving these clues. I know he's trying to tell me something. I just need to figure out what." Daniels sighed. "It's not worth losing yourself, Clara. Don't let him win." But it was too late. The gentleman had already burrowed deep into her psyche, and the line between her pursuit of justice and her fascination with him was blurring. The cat and mouse game. The city continued to reel from the aftermath of each meticulously crafted murder scene. Public fear grew, fed by sensational media coverage that speculated about the gentleman's identity, his motives, and his connection to Detective Stone. But Clara was already beyond caring about public perception. Each new crime scene became a chapter in their twisted narrative, and each note left behind deepened her connection to the killer. One evening, Clara received another letter. This one was different, an invitation with detailed instructions. She was to come alone, unarmed, to a secluded spot by the river at midnight. The letter ended with a simple line: "The truth awaits, if you dare." Despite her training, Clara felt her heart pounding with something between fear and anticipation. She couldn't deny the thrill of being so close to him, even as every rational part of her screamed to approach with caution. But this was her chance, a rare opportunity to confront the man who had haunted her for so long. The meeting. The riverbank was eerily quiet as Clara arrived, her breath visible in the chilly night air. Shadows stretched long across the water, creating a haunting landscape that seemed to echo the darkness she had chased for so long. She waited, her senses heightened, every sound amplified. Then she saw him. Sebastian emerged from the shadows, his face half hidden beneath the brim of a hat, his silhouette framed by the dim moonlight. He moved with the ease of someone who had nothing to fear, as if this moment had been inevitable all along. "Detective Stone," he greeted her, his voice smooth and calm. "You came." She kept her expression neutral, fighting to keep her composure. "This ends tonight, Sebastian." He smiled, a small knowing smile that sent a chill down her spine. "Ah, but it never ends, does it? You and I, we're bound together, drawn into each other's orbit. Can you deny that?" Clara clenched her fists. "You're a murderer, a monster. I'll never be anything like you." Sebastian tilted his head, his gaze piercing. "Haven't you felt it, Clara? That darkness within you? The part of you that understands what I'm doing, that's captivated by the beauty of it all?" For a moment she hesitated, his words echoing in her mind. She had felt it, the strange allure of his work, the morbid fascination with his mind. But she shook her head, forcing herself to focus. "Your games are over," she said, her voice steady. "This is the end." He laughed softly, the sound resonating in the stillness of the night. "Endings are merely beginnings in disguise, Clara. You may catch me, but I'll always be with you. You can't escape what you truly are." And with that, he stepped back into the shadows, disappearing into the night as silently as he had come. Clara stood alone on the riverbank, her heart pounding as she grappled with the truth of his words. The aftermath. In the weeks that followed, Clara managed to return to her life, piecing herself back together bit by bit. The gentleman killer vanished, leaving behind a city both relieved and haunted. For a while she tried to move on, burying herself in other cases, other lives to save. But late at night, when she was alone in her apartment, she would find herself drawn back to her memories of him, the midnight river, his piercing gaze, the allure of his darkness. One evening, she received a final letter. It was slipped under her apartment door, written in the same elegant handwriting. The message was brief, but it cut through her defenses, a reminder of the connection they shared. "Until we meet again, Clara." She stared at the letter, her emotions a tumultuous blend of anger, fear, and something she couldn't quite name. She knew deep down that he was right. As much as she hated to admit it, a part of her would always be connected to him, bound by the shadows they had danced in together. And so she kept the letter, tucked away in a drawer, a reminder of the dark legend she could never fully escape.